G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat after a convincing win over a top four rival in the Fremantle Dockers. How you feeling, Pato?
Super, mate. How about that? Blue Baggers up and about. I think overall, it was just a really good way to kind of see the Blue Baggers get a big win. And then for everyone who has been saying that Carlton haven't beat anyone, good, mate. That's a big stuff because they've beaten Brisbane, Melbourne, Geelong. They've beaten Geelong as well. They're all the top three teams. So give us a chance to actually play against these sides, and we'll show them how it's done.
100%, mate. And I think, they beat us earlier in the year, and it's always good to respond and beat them back on our home turf, which is good. And it was pretty convincing, really. I think I was pretty comfortable the last quarter. Probably the start of last year, a bit nervous, a bit of PTSD, but we kicked a few at the start of the last, and I thought, we're comfortable. We're comfortable, and I backed him in to finish off the game. So leading on to that, we're now 10-4, which is, geez, if you told me that at the start of the year, I think we've said that every 2 weeks. If you told me that at the start of the year, I'd be laughing. How do you feel about that record, Pato?
Yeah, 10-4. We spoke about it before we went on air. Just 10-4. If you told me that, even round one when we beat Richmond, 10-4, that is just scary. Of where we've kind of progressed from last year, especially. Because last year, what absolutely blows my mind is how good we're performing under Voss and a brand new coaching staff. Coaching staff, every single one of them's been, except for Luke Power, but everyone else, and also the CEO, new president, come on. It's a brand new club, and for us to be performing this good right now and maybe perform even better in a few years, it's going to be pretty scary times.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a bit of a threat to other teams who, teams like Melbourne and Brisbane, and they probably thought, we're up top, but they probably didn't think we'd make the jump like we currently have, and hopefully we continue to do so. We'll review the predictions we made. I'll start off with Sammy's prediction. He predicted the Blues by 1, in a close one, which, probably before the game he thought it might have been tighter, but he still picked the Blues. Good on you, Sammy. I picked the Blues by 26, which was close, which was real close. About a goal off, obviously winning by 31 points. You, Pato, you tipped us by 17, which is, probably midway mark, not, comfortable win, but still close-ish. But, and Jack, very similar to you, tipped us by 13. So we all tipped the Blues, which is not really surprising, really. Yeah. Jack tipping us by 13 was surprising. But this weekend, I've seen a little bit of a mental shift from the speech. He's getting a bit of peppity step, bit of confidence.
He's starting to believe, mate. He's starting to believe. He's starting to jump on the blue train. Let's hope it. Let's hope the final stop is that, of course, the premiership at the end of the year. But I think speech. He's always been, I don't really want to speak badly about him, but he's always just been very honest. He's never been biased towards Carlton at all.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's what I like about speech. Obviously, doing a podcast with 3 other blokes, you want them to have different opinions at times, and that's the whole point of a podcast. If you all agreed with each other, it'd probably get a bit boring, wouldn't it? So, on your speech, Lee, and we hope to have him and Sam back on the show very, very soon. We'll review the matchups prior to the game. We'll start off with Pearce against Mackay, which was an interesting matchup. The start of the game, I think, just the Freo defence as a whole really just held up, considering the amount of inside 50s we had, and credit to them. I think they're a solid back six. I rate their back six. What was your thoughts on the matchup between Pearce and Mackay?
Yeah, I feel straight away, I think Mackay kind of set the standard because I thought he was going to dominate. I generally thought that first quarter, I think he kicked 1 goal, 2 or something at the end of the first quarter, or maybe it was halftime, one of the two. But it looked like he was in the mood. It looked like he was in the mood to dominate. So I was like, shit, okay, well, this could be a big game for Harry. And then, he just couldn't really convert, especially early. Because I feel like if he got those first, if that turned from 1 goal into 3 goals straight, he would have been probably on for the rest of the game. But of course, Pearce is a solid defender, but I think he just got shut up by probably arguably the best forward in the comp.
Yeah, and I feel like Harry's game wasn't really measured by goals. He still kicked 2, which is very solid considering his partner in crime, Charlie Curnow, kicked 4. So 6 between them. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
You still win by 5 goals. So, and he's just his aerial work, bringing the ball down the ground, set up a few of Charlie's goals actually. So I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, Pearce went all right considering, Harry's such a fucking hard matchup, really. He's quick, he's cool. So, yeah.
So one thing about that is because when I first saw it, so Griffin Logue actually went back to go on Charlie. And then because I thought Cox or maybe even Ryan was going to go on Charlie, but all of a sudden they chose like the 4th option, which was Logue, which I thought was probably quite an interesting kind of way to kind of play it, I guess, because Cox was then on Silvani and I think Ryan was on Durden. And I'm like, oh, so Ryan was initially like, we were thinking maybe Ryan was going to go on Charlie because they're probably around the same height.
Yeah.
But then next minute, just out of nowhere, it just shows how probably the amount of depth that Fremantle have in the back line. But it just shows that when our forward's going, we're gonna be very hard to stop.
Yeah, it's dynamic. I think it's really, really dynamic. And there's nothing you can really, like, they can both play on the ground, him and Charlie, Harry and Charlie, sorry. And they can both aerially fantastic and they're just agile and they're very modern forwards, in my opinion. So it's great to have them on our team. We'll move on to the midfield battle. These two have been informed, the 2 young guns of the competition in Brayshaw and Sam Walsh. I think we know who won the matchup. What were your thoughts, Pato?
I reckon Brayshaw was pretty. Nah, I don't want to. I don't want to give Brayshaw a shit because he's actually a pretty solid player. He finished with 27 touches, but once again, Sam Walsh, man, 40 touches, like that's
career high.
Career high. And what was his personal best? 37 against Geelong, I think.
30, I think so. 37 against them or Collingwood last year. I don't know which game it was, but it was one of those.
Yeah, and I just think like we mentioned it, I think in his first year, I was a little bit worried that he probably didn't have the best ball use, that he kind of he didn't use the ball very well.
Yeah.
His ball use is sensational. And I'm not kidding. I actually want to know how many score involvements or kind of links to play kind of led to an inside 50.
I think he had around 8 score involvements or something like that. Yeah.
Crazy. Because, yes, that's probably the most important thing. But I'm actually because we had so many inside 50s, I actually want to know how many he was actually linked in to that. Because, come on, 40 touches, it was a big factor to the reason why we won.
Yeah, and I just think Walsh has had more impact with the ball in hand than Brayshaw did on the weekend. I think we stopped most of their mids most of them are quite silky mids. I think, Mundy's good when he's on the outside. Brayshaw's pretty handy on the outside. He's an inside mid as well, but they like it a bit, have a bit of space, don't like the contact too much. I think we just bullied them in a sense, I think. And I think it was brutal considering we didn't have Chera playing. It shows the depth. We had Fisher running through there as well. I think it was fantastic and they all contributed. But, yeah, I think Walsh had the upper hand. But I think Brayshaw did beat Walsh in the first encounter over in Perth in round 5. But it's just great to see Walshy back it up. So we'll move on to the Ruck matchup. And, round 5 was interesting. I think it was Pitto going down and TDK had to step up for the last, half or 3/4 to face a, pretty good ruckman and quite a mature ruckman, young ruckman in Darcy. What was your thoughts on TDK's game? Because me personally, I thought he was superb.
Yeah, I thought it was of course it was super. I thought it was terrific, but I think it's kind of looking more at the stats and stuff, and I guess kind of the impact that Darcy had. Yes, he didn't take a lot of opportunities to really because I think he had a shot maybe, I don't know what quarter it was, but he had a shot where he probably should have kicked it, and he just didn't really convert. And I guess TDK's impact was probably stronger than Darcy, even though Darcy probably had more of a chance to impact the game with more touches and stuff, and especially more hit outs that we'll touch on later. But yeah, I think it's just. I'm really glad that TDK is starting to come into his own now, but I'm just a little bit worried. I know that we spoke about it before, but I'm just a little bit worried to see how he'll go when Pitt does come back. Because of course I expect him to be just as good because he's just another way. He's just another key forward. Like if we can put him forward, like with Silvani, Curnow, Mackay, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes with that. But I think he's definitely improved when we probably needed it the most. But I just think I'm just a little bit nervous about that when Pitt comes back.
Yeah, I think it's me personally. I think it's going to be a positive, just due to us being able to really punish an opponent. You know, Pito runs off, TDK goes in the ruck. That's a main ruckman probably for any other team in the competition. Yeah. Really, I think, like Kane Corn said, he's probably going to be worth a fair bit of cash. If you're talking about Luke Jackson being worth $1 million, I think DeConning probably has to be up there just due to his ability to go forward and really impact and play around the ground. And geez, he's just really coming to his own since that round 5 game. I think the improvement, 10 rounds? That's fucking amazing. Like really, it is absolutely amazing. And I think one of my key things is it's these marks that he's taking in the pack. He comes out of nowhere and just takes them. Important marks, really stops the momentum of other teams. And it can also get our momentum up and about. So, and obviously the crowd get up and about when Tommy's taking marks and, when Big Cruz is running around and taking marks and being able to play around the ground, it's very similar in a sense. So it's always good seeing a ruckman having skills like a midfielder. So, it'll be good to see, but hopefully Big Pitt's back soon.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And one thing about that is just, I completely agree with you, 100% spot on. And I just think the reason why TDK is probably might be worth so much in the market is because I think Grundy was probably one of the first ruckmen to really start this, and just the agile and having the fourth kind of midfielder around the ground, like, and his ball use. Like, yes, we speak about Darcy, about how he's kind of an old-fashioned ruckman because he's probably not the quickest, he's probably not the fittest guy going around, but he can really dominate other ruckmen like TDK because of his strength. But I think that's probably why he's probably might be worth a little bit of money in the future. Hopefully not too much money because I want him to stay at Carlton. So I think roughly, I mean, Kane Corn's saying like 800 to 900,000 is pretty steep because I don't even know how much it would be on now, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yep. So we'll move on to the last matchup. Lewis Young on Rory Lobb. And Jesus, Lewis Young, he's taken, the key back. Even when he was playing with Wiedering, I thought he was superb as well. But he's just a leader. He's 21 years old and he's leading these defenders. I saw some footage, might have been a Fox footy or something like that. Him setting up the back six. Lewis Young setting up the back six, telling Kemp, you got to be on that side or, different. Mate, this guy's played under how many games for Carlton? He's probably played 12 games, 13 games.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And he's leading the back six. And I thought he didn't even have a step wrong yesterday. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, like especially because at the start of the year, I probably had him behind Omac as the other key defender, like along with Wiedering. And I just find that just unbelievable because, I mean, to be fair, I haven't probably watched a lot of doggy games and especially him in general. So by his highlights when we first got him, I was like, like he's good, of course. But probably like his only highlight was when he took a specky, number 33, I think it was, at the doggies as well. But he was like, he took it like a stream, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So like, obviously he's agile, but it's just going to be interesting to see how he actually goes if he does get up that opportunity to be that second tall. Now he's the first tall. He's pretty much the only key back, and look what he's doing. Like, I think there was a stat. I think it was 44 or 45 45 spoils in the last 3 games. That has to be some sort of record.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think if I look at the stats now, he still takes his marks. Like,
spot on.
I like how he's a mark kind of first defender, not mark first, but when he has the opportunity to take a mark, he doesn't punch.
Yeah.
I feel some defenders struggle at doing that because you just punch and you don't get possession of the ball. It's more of a 50-50 throwing. When you're taking those marks, you got possession. The more times you have possession of the ball in a football game, you know what happens. You win the game. So he's just amazing. I think our back six, credit to them, in the last month or so, it's been depleted. Even last week against Richmond, they had 147,000 inside 50s and they scored 81. So, and they kept us in the game. So they were fantastic. Freo scoring 50 at Etihad. Fremantle, not too sure about that. But we'll move on. We'll just get started about, it's been a positive probably the first half of the year. And that's our, stoppage and clearance work. And I think that's just, due to our depth in the midfield. A player doesn't play like a Chera. A Fisher stands up and hops in the middle. Their clearance work was fantastic. Even though losing the hitouts yesterday, 28-45, I feel like TDK halved a lot of those hitouts though. Like Darcy's hitouts weren't very impactful, in my opinion. Clearances 44-30, we beat them. That is off the charts. Like Free, I think, are one of the highest clearance number teams in the comp, killing them at their own game. Centered clearances 14-5, like that's ridiculous. And I think Freo's average was 11. And I think 11 this season, and they've only had 5 centre clearances and stoppage clearances 30-25, which is just enormous. What are your thoughts on our midfield and Gizo lifted?
Yeah, absolutely spot on with that, because I think especially with last week, as you mentioned, just the change of how many inside 50s Richmond had to how many we had. Like obviously that just shows last week and maybe the past few weeks when we've not really been playing our best footy is just because it's down to our midfield. Because if it's not in the back line, we don't have anything to worry about, because it's the midfield and the forwards kind of pressure, like putting on a lot of pressure. And one thing that I'll have to say, if I don't have the chance to say it later, is just that was by far, and generally I reckon it's probably, this is probably like a bit of a stretch because I'm not too sure, but that is the best game that I can recall with our pressure. Our pressure, our presence, our sort of just weight, a big body, guys like Sarong, guys like Will Walker in the back line, guys like Collier, like all these guys that think that they're probably a little bit, like obviously, I actually kind of like Fremantle, so I like their players as well, but guys like Fife, like he's a two-time Brownlow medalist, like, and
it's just that, like, just adding to your point before you continue, it's guys like Fisher laying tackles, tough tackles, Durdens, and just talking about the midfield, it's just brutal. I think if we look at the tackle counts for the game, I think we top that definitely. Cripps had 5, Harry had 5, Motlop had 5, or Hewitt, Kennedy, Sauce. I thought Sauce was enormous in centre clearances, just in terms of his pressure as soon as the ball hit the deck. And oh mate, it's honestly, it's unbelievable how good our midfield is, and I think it's probably the best. I think it definitely matches the best if we aren't not the best currently. You got Brisbane's and Melbourne, who, geez, I don't know how we match with them because we haven't versed them yet, but geez, it'll be an exciting prospect when we do end up versing those teams. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, genuinely, I think it's just, we spoke about it before, but it's the firepower we have as a footy club. It's guys like Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow down in the forward line. We have guys like Wiedering and Lewis Young back in the back line. We have Sarden Williams when Williams is fit off the halfback flank. And not even to mention Sam Doherty. Like, these guys, like, he's an All-Australian. He's definitely in the All-Australian team right now. So let's hope he carries on for the rest of the season. But midfield, Walsh, Cripps, Chera, Kennedy, Hewitt, like, you can go on. And just to very quickly mention what I was about to say before is, especially with, I think it was Plowman or Newman. I think it may have been Newman. And he got 5 down on the ground. I think it was Fisher that tackled him. And Newman went straight into him. And it just like, let's be real, Nick Newman probably isn't the big name that everyone probably knows like a Nat Fyfe. But he doesn't care that it's Nat Fyfe. He just thinks that it's every other player. So he just goes there and actually supports his teammate for one, but also to get in the face, like get into him. Like, and dare I say it, that is very, very Michael Voss-like. Very Michael Voss. And it puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, I think to be a premiership team, you have to have the brutal edge, and obviously Vossi and the Brisbane Lions in their three-peat were brutal. They were, probably more brutal than, well, obviously they're skilled, they had stars all over the ground, but you have to have that brutal edge. And every single season you see the premiership teams, Richmond, Melbourne last year were brutal in that final series. They were brutal against teams. Just absolutely just almost bullied them, hurt them,
Yeah.
and just obviously skilled. But we have that brutal edge, and Carlton, we've lost that edge in previous years. I think in decades, even when we were okay, 2011s and that, we just didn't have that edge, that brutal edge. I think as a whole, whoever comes in, whoever, doesn't matter how good you are, what role you play, whether you're the fucking captain in Patrick Cripps or a player like Brody Kemp who's come in for his second game of the year, they all just have that edge, and it's fantastic to see.
And one thing, just because you made a very good point there, I just think one thing to touch on about that is, I think just the trust in every single teammate. Like, as you said, like, what Paddy Cripps is going to do every single week, but also for Vossi, because I think after the game, I think Vossi, as he always does, like, he always speaks to his players, but there was a photo of him and Kemp, and it kind of looked like Kemp was just like, I hope he knows that he did a fantastic job. But I think probably like his standards, maybe because he wasn't as good in the first half and he was a little bit worried to see how the coaching staff will react to his game. But I want him to know that he did fantastic, because it's just also seeing that, like, Vossi going up to him and saying, you did your role. If you do your role, you stay in this side. And I think that's what, as we mentioned before, that's what we haven't seen in the past few years. We haven't seen guys like Lockie O'Brien, Jack Nunes, Matthew Cottrell saying, if you go out and do this, you'll get a game every week. You'll get a game every week if you're in my side, if I'm the coach, and acting like I'm Vossi. But it's just it's just fantastic. It really is.
Yeah, and just quickly adding on the stoppages, our inside 50s, 64-40, which is unbelievable. Our average is 56, so we had 8 more than our average, and obviously they had 40, which was pretty bad for them. But kudos to us.
Yeah,
it's all about the mids this week. I think they were superb. We'll just move on. I think for us, we're known as a clearance and stoppage team, but I feel like if we have more ball than the other team, I think we win the game. I just feel like, uncontested possessions, being able to spread from the contest, I thought were fantastic. Little hands out, Hewitt to Walsh to O'Brien. We're using the right guys. We're handballing off to Sard. I feel like we're using Sard better this year. I think last year it was kind of a stop-start. He did it a few times. Not him personally, but just as a team, we just used the wrong blokes to drive it inside 50. And really it's been great. But also we'll just move on to some more stats. So we had 399 disposals to their 351, which is higher than our average, and theirs is lower than their average, which is fantastic. 233 kicks, which shows you the amount of how the impact of those disposals. Obviously handballs 166, which I think is maybe lower than the Richmond game, which was wet, but we'll move on from that. And then obviously the inside 50 is 64-40, as I touched on before, which was fantastic. We'll just move on to just the key ball getters for mine. I think that was pretty much how the game was going to be won. I think from the midfield, their midfield's pretty solid this year. They've got the likes of a good pickup in Will Brodie, and similar to us, we've got a good pickup in George Hewitt, who've both been probably the pickups of the year, considering the success of both teams. But for mine, it's guys off half back for us driving the ball. Like I said, we're using the right guys more times than not. We got Doherty with 30, Sard with 28 again. Has he had a game under 25?
Yeah, I don't think so. I genuinely don't think so, mate.
George Hewitt, 27. Matt Kennedy, 25. Cripper still had 22. Nunes with 20, which were pretty impactful 20 touches, might I add. What were your thoughts on just our overall ball use and being able to use those types of players each week? Because their impact with the ball leads to wins, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just look at it. As I mentioned before, Sam Walsh, 40 touches, mate. It's just mind-blowing. And I reckon we mention it every single week. It's just guys like Walsh, Doherty, Sard, Hewitt, Kennedy, Cripps, Shero when he's back. Like, all these guys, and maybe like a guy like Lockie O'Brien didn't have as many touches with the ball, but arguably his best game, because it's how he uses it. It's how he uses it. And it's, once again, as I mentioned before, down to if you play your role. And I think that's what, especially me as a supporter, that's what I've noticed a lot more this year, that like they have a role that we kind of know that they're going to do, and we know if they have actually done it on the day. So if they've done it, that's when they say if they get like say like if Corey Dern gets like 10 touches, 0 goals, but we see his pressure acts, that changes my mind on him. Like I think like a guy like Jesse Motlop, he probably had, I think he had maybe 4 or 5 touches, but me personally, I actually thought that he was actually half decent because of his pressure acts. It's just his pressure acts and the way he runs to that player. And yes, he won't get a stat for it, but he runs to the other player and wastes a few more, wastes a bit of energy to get to that other player. So this player here doesn't have to go in. It doesn't have to go there because that means that he can push back. Like it's very hard to explain me doing this and that. But it's just stuff like that I see at the game because that's what a lot of people don't really realize because they look at the stats and they see guys like, Sam Doherty, best on ground, 100%, 30 touches. And they don't say, no, we drop Motlop, drop Dirt and all these guys. It's a structure. It's a structure that when Owies goes out, bring in Motlop straight away. Yeah. Because like there was guys talking about bringing in Centerfield for Owies. Why? Bring in a guy that if you've got a guy available, bring in a guy that's in the same position. Yeah. Why change anything? You spent all week trying to work out how to beat this side. If you get it laid out, why would you bring in a guy like Setterfield? Like, mind you, he's been fantastic in the VFL, but it was not different. The right exactly. Exactly. Like it would be different if Kennedy went out. Setterfield, of course he come in. It's just stuff like that. Like, and I reckon they've been very smart with how they've done their team lineup. And it's kind of just like and also their emergencies. That's what I've noticed as well. They have options in the emergencies if something happens with COVID or just a laid out like Owies. So many stuff that I've kind of noticed that's just like, that's just smart. That's smart from the football club. And it's so pleasing to see that we're starting to see success, Dappy boy.
Oh, it is. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, there's this different feeling around the club. And like you said, the system, it's, you know, next man up. And me personally, there's nothing worse than the laid out. It can ruin your structure big time. And in past years, it's ruined our structure hugely. Yeah. You know, if someone comes out late, you know, it might be I don't know, it might be an Eddie Betts or something. And then you bring in a Levi Casbolt, which is just, it just ruins the structure. You want to bring in someone like, there's been this outcry to bring in Paddy Dow. Why? No, I'm not absolutely bagging Paddy. I think he's fantastic. And he's just unlucky right now that our midfield group is fantastic. But why? Exactly. It's working. It is working. And if you want to back it in, and I think it's about the consistency of the 22. You want to keep the 22 consistent. The best teams don't change every week all the time. They might have little, you know, if there's an injury, obviously you have to change, right? But if you don't have to, keep that group. And obviously as a back six, we can't because every fucking defender's gone down. But once they start coming back, you want to have a few weeks where you have that same lineup because they start to have chemistry. And yesterday's game, that chemistry came out. Yeah. Players just knew what they wanted to do. And it is great to see, but we'll move on. We touched on the ruck battle before. Obviously, Darcy with 35 hitouts, TDK 22, Rory Lobb with 10, and Sauce with 4. It's tough to measure because we dominated the clearances, like we touched on before, but obviously losing the hitouts. It shows you how different our team's layout is right now. We don't have to win the hitouts for us to win the clearances. We can trust our mids to be able to kind of work off the opposition's ruck tap and be able to win the clearances. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, couldn't have said it any better myself. It's just, I think that's like, also with me, like when I saw that Sean Darcy had 13 more hitouts, I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe Darcy did have a little bit of a better game. But it's how TDK taps the ball, and it's very Nick Nat-like. Nick Nat-like. That's what I noticed. I think it was
the one where he hit to Hewitt?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, last quarter.
Yeah, but like, of course, Grundy has his pros in his game, and Gawn has his pros in the game. No one has that other than Nick Nat. Nick Nat is the only one, and he's probably been the one that's created that sort of just the wrist work, like to be able to change from there to there and go from like That's just talent. And TDK, it's just stuff like that I've seen. I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, obviously that's down to also his craft, but it's credit to the midfield and ruck, but also to Cruiser. I reckon he's had a massive impact on TDK. So I think it's stuff like that I've especially seen that's been really fantastic, really fantastic.
And I think, like a lot of people are saying, he's dominating in quarters right now. He's had big quarters, big halves. I think once the years go by, I can see him dominating four quarters of footy. And with the team we have, Jesus Christ, watch out. We'll move on now to our best on ground. We had a lot of players that could have been up there, but for mine personally, Sammy Walsh, career high touches. He was everywhere, and I thought he was going to finish off with a goal in that last quarter. I thought he was going to finish off with a goal, but wasn't meant to be. He had 40 touches, 19 kicks, 7 clearances, 540 metres gained. That's just impact. Not 40 touches like a Parish, where you're going back and back. You're going forward. We are attacking. And, what do you have to say about Walsh? Because, what is he, 21? Is he 21?
21, he 22, around there.
21, 22. And this guy is dominating games of footy.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. But it's not like this is the first time he's done it. Like last year, we generally thought that he was going to a genuine Brownlow chance. He finished fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
I think he tied
he had votes that were enough to win previous Brownlow.
Yes. I think what did he finish with? What, 32 or something? 30?
Yeah.
Something around there. And I'm like, 30 votes for a 20-year-old Duffy boy. Like, come on, man. Give me a spell. Like, but it's just, I think, like, my best on ground, like Sammy Walsh, of course it is, but just to mention a few other players that really stood out to me especially, and just Charlie Kerner with his 4 goals. I think he needed that game because he probably did have a little bit of a off patch, especially the past few weeks, because I think when Harry's come back is probably that's what I'm a little bit worried about. Other players who come back to see how the other one goes, who's done really well, like a Lewis Young or a Teddy K, to see how they go with a Wiedering coming back and a Pittener coming back. So I think Charlie is definitely up to it to stick to that standard. And I think he just needed that game, especially against Fremantle. But also Zach Fisher, 29 touches, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. And I think one thing to mention about that before we move on to the next one, and then I'll get you to say that as well, but his midfield minutes, his X factor around the footy, I love that. Love that. Mm-hmm. Get him around the footy more, because I think that was his genuine chance to get him around the footy because Chera's been out. So I think
he played the Chera role.
Exactly.
Yep.
Spot on with that. So I think, and I love the left footer. Like, we tried Jack Harrell during the year, probably stiff on him because he's
just a young fella.
Yep. Exactly. He's just a young fella, but I really like that left footer. But take us through the wingers, mate.
Just to quickly add on Zach Fisher, I thought he was enormous. One of the best games he's played for the club. And by the way, just quickly, Mr. Teague said he wasn't a midfielder. So we'll move on from that. We'll move on to our wingers, who I think they've been harshly. I think probably last year they probably weren't harshly criticised. I think they struggled last year, as did the whole team. A bunch of the team did, and just the whole coaching staff and the whole club as a whole. But in parts of this year, they've been criticised, which I think is absolutely wrong. And this is the wingers. So we're touching on Cottrell, Nunes, O'Brien. They had 5 goals between them, which is enormous. Cottrell with 2 goals, O'Brien with 2 goals, and Jack Nunes with 1, who could have had 2 or 3, actually. He had a few opportunities. Yeah. Shout out to Nunesy on his 200th game. But honestly, like, if I hear one more thing about O'Brien not getting contested possessions, that is not his job. That is not his job. That I don't care. He doesn't need contested touches. That's not his job.
Exactly.
People used to talk about him saying he can't get a hard ball. He doesn't need to get a hard ball.
One thing that you said it, I couldn't say it any better, Duffy boy, but that's why you have Nunes. That's why you have Cripper. That's why you have Hewitt. That's why you have Kennedy. That's why you have Walshy. Like, give them a chance to do their role. And that's why, we don't want to shit on Carlton supporters, but a lot of them, just their logic with the structure, especially with how trust the coaches. O'Brien's not a dumbass. He's a pick 10. He's a pick 10 for a reason. His kicking is his strength. His running is his strength. He's an elite runner.
Two-way running. Runs defensively forward.
Exactly. He doesn't stop running. So why would you get him on the ball contested when he's not built to be a cripper? Why would you do that? What's the point of that?
That's not his role. Tell me a winger that gets a fucking hard ball. There's certain opportunities where they do, right?
Exactly.
That's like an off occasion where he has to go one-on-one with someone or something like that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't need to get the hard ball.
He doesn't need to
get the hard ball.
Exactly.
He's got to be on the outside because we've got to use those guys on the outside. They're as important as the guys on the inside.
Yeah.
To be able to push the ball forward. Like I said, we're getting the ball in O'Brien's hands more, Nunes' hands more, Cottrell's hands more, Sard, Doherty, all these guys getting it forward rather than Cripps having to do everything. Instead of Walsh having to, which he did anyway, did everything. But doesn't have to get it forward. He's allowed to release and give it off to a guy where he lays a block, has space. O'Brien hits him up. By the way, Jack Nunes' inside 50s yesterday, enormous. There was one where he cut back in. He took his time.
Yeah.
Last year he was rushing it and he took his time, hit up Cottrell, I think, and he hit up Charlie when Charlie ended up kicking the goal, playing on kicking the goal. And quickly touch on these guys. 17 touches, 19 and 20 between them. So Cottrell was 17, O'Brien 19, Nunes 20. Enormous games from them. But it was just fantastic, Pato.
Yeah, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, so obviously following on from our win on Saturday afternoon, I think it was 4:30 the VFL played, so it was straight after. The Twos won against Coburg by 4 points. I think we're up by 2 goals, 3/4 time. Then it was a nail biter. I saw a few tweets saying it was a bit close for comfort. I think we had one left on the bench by the end of the game, which was not good at all. But just touching on AFL listed players playing that game, Paddy Dow with 34, just continuing his midfield domination in the Twos. Stocker, 28 touches off half back. He might come in just due to Boyd having an ankle complaint at the end of the game. I'm not sure how big that was, but at least we've got that replacement. Hayes having 25 touches and a goal. And just to name a few. Carroll, I think he might have missed the last quarter, but he had 18 touches. And Murkov, Big Merk, had 13 touches and I think 28 hit outs. So he's developing well, the big fella. And I think the Twos are sitting 4th now. So good sign. You know your club's doing well if both teams are doing well. Like if the Twos are doing well. Remember when we were terrible and our Twos were fucking shit?
Yeah.
Like, I think there was one weekend where we lost by 100 in the AFL and then Collingwood Twos beat us by 120.
Yeah.
So that just shows you, and it's always a correlation between the two, which is hopefully we see 2 flags this year. But we'll just move on a little sneak peek of the preview of next week. St Kilda, what are your initial thoughts of the game, Pato?
Yeah, mate. Danger game. I reckon last week's game was like Fremantle's game was a danger game to me. So I think the way that I've kind of looked at St Kilda game is just genuinely how St Kilda respond. Like, of course, I want to think more about how we play, but I rate St Kilda when they're at their best, and especially with Steele back. I don't know. Like, I just think, like, I'm not worried. I expect us to win by a fair bit as well. But it's just that little bit of a back in the back of my head, just a little bit, just losing to Collingwood. But they've proved to be pretty good. So I think they're better than St Kilda. But, I think there's a few guys that could come back as well. Weeders is a big chance, which has changed a lot. And just a very quick thing to touch on Wiedering, and he's just, Walsh as well, when he was injured, just when these guys are professionals, when they want to get back into the side, they work their ass off. Like, they don't go to Bali through their bye. Like, no, but I mean, obviously we're not going to touch on that. But it's just stuff like that. Like, when they love the sport, they love their job. So they're going to do everything in their right to get back into this side and help their side win games, even win a premiership. So seriously, I expect Wiedering to come back. I reckon he probably will. We probably need him. And also Adam Chera. But what's your thoughts on those two inclusions, mate?
Those are huge. I think that'll daunt. I think would beat the Saints with the team we had on the weekend, but I think having Wieders down there would just sew up the win. And the Saints had Steele back on the weekend and still lost by 60. So against a team we beat quite well, I guess comfortably in a sort in Sydney. But it'll be interesting, and obviously we'll get into more depth for the preview. But it's exciting. I think we've put ourselves in a good spot. We can't afford to drop it, but if we do drop it, we're not in a worse position. I don't think we will drop it. I think it's important for us to win this week, just due to the draw. The draw's not easy, the back end, but I don't think it's necessarily hard. And you can't look at it as a negative. I think we're good enough to beat these teams. So it's a big game. It's bigger for them, big stakes for them. I think their season's on the line. If they really want to be a top 8 team, they're going to have to come and challenge us. And hopefully they don't. But if they do, I think we can knock them over. But that's it for the review. It's happy times at Blue Land. Anything else to add, Pato?
No, mate. Just looking forward to the big game this Friday night. And I think the preview show for that game probably will be out maybe Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday night, but we'll see because it's a Friday night game. So it's a quick turnaround. But very excited, mate. Very, very excited. Go the bang.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it every week. Friday night footy. I think it's sold out almost. The Saints Carlton game. It's their home game, I think.
I think it's our home game.
Our home game. So I reckon there'll be about 4 Saints supporters there. Cheering their Saints on to a 10-goal loss. So that's it for this episode. Pato, you do your thing, mate.
Oh, mate, always a pleasure. And as always, Daffy boy, up the baggers.